USCIS Loyalty Screening and Contribution Test, August 2025 Policy Shift Explained. In August 2025, the U.S. immigration system quietly entered a new era of scrutiny and evaluation. Two major policy changes are already in effect, not proposed, not pending, but fully active, and they are reshaping the way green card and citizenship applications are reviewed. If you are applying for a green card or naturalization, or even if your application is still pending in the system, these updates directly affect you. This isn't just about paperwork. It's about how you are perceived by USCIS and what you bring to the table as a future permanent resident or citizen. 1. The Anti-American Views Screening, what it means. The first major change introduces an ideological review for applicants. USCIS officers are now directed to screen for signs of so-called anti-American views when reviewing your case. But here's the problem. The term anti-American isn't clearly defined. This means the interpretation can vary from officer to officer, creating a gray area that raises serious questions about consistency and fairness. Here's what the new screening could involve: a deeper look into public records and past affiliations, checks on organizational memberships, past or present, a wider review of your online presence and social media activity, additional questions during interviews, or even background checks that may slow down your case. Supporters of the change argue this step enhances national security and ensures that new residents and citizens share American values. But critics point out the broad and vague language leaves too much to interpretation, meaning one applicant might be approved while another with similar views could face denial. 2. Positive contributions requirement for citizenship. The second policy change is just as significant, especially for those seeking citizenship. For decades, the requirement for naturalization has been relatively simple: show good moral character. That meant no major criminal history, no fraud, and basic compliance with the law. Now, USCIS has raised the bar. Applicants must actively demonstrate positive contributions to American society to be approved. Examples of positive contributions include volunteer or community service, such as school events, church work, or charity involvement; military or public service, including participation in civic programs or serving in the armed forces; economic contributions, like running a business, paying taxes, or creating jobs in your local community. This is a major shift. It's no longer enough to simply avoid trouble. You now need to prove that you've actively engaged and contributed to your community and the country. For many applicants, this means collecting new documentation, proof of volunteer work, letters of recommendation, tax records, or employment verification, evidence that may not have been required in the past. 3. Why these changes matter. Each of these updates is significant on its own, but together, they create an entirely new framework for how USCIS evaluates applicants. Here's what you need to know. Green card applicants may now have their personal views, affiliations, or online history factored into the decision process. Citizenship applicants need to go beyond simply staying out of legal trouble. They must show active, positive engagement. Pending cases already in the system will also be reviewed under these new standards, meaning even long-waiting applicants aren't exempt. As a result, expect more complex interviews, longer processing times, and higher documentation requirements moving forward. 4. Who will be most affected? This policy change casts a wide net. Here's who should be paying close attention. Green card applicants, whether you're family-based, employment-based, or applying through another channel, expect deeper scrutiny. Citizenship applicants, every N-400 form will now require some form of evidence showing positive contributions. Asylum seekers and refugees, though already heavily vetted, these groups could now face an extra layer of ideological review. Pending cases, applications filed months or even years ago may be re-reviewed under the updated rules, depending on the discretion of your assigned officer. 5. Policy context and debate. The administration is framing these updates as part of a values-based immigration framework. The goal, according to USCIS, is to ensure that those granted permanent residency or citizenship are law-abiding and positively engaged members of society. Supporters argue that this is a step towards stronger national security and better integration. Critics, however, warn that the vague language and wide discretion granted to officers could lead to inconsistencies and even constitutional challenges, particularly around freedom of speech and expression. Legal scholars are already predicting court cases in the months ahead, but until those play out, the policies remain in full force. 6. Real-world scenarios. Here's how this could look in real life. A green card holder who criticized U.S. foreign policy on social media years ago could now face delays or additional questions during renewal or naturalization. A citizenship applicant who works multiple jobs to support their family but hasn't done formal volunteer work may now need to demonstrate contributions in other ways, like consistent tax payments or employer letters. Two applicants with similar backgrounds may face very different outcomes, depending on how individual officers interpret their positive contributions or perceived anti-American views. 7. Practical steps for applicants. If you're in the process or planning to apply, here are steps you can take right now. Audit your online presence. Review your social media accounts and public statements. Remove or clarify content that could be misunderstood. Document your contributions. Keep records of volunteer activities, letters from community leaders, tax receipts, and employment records. Seek legal guidance. A qualified immigration attorney can help identify strong evidence for your file and guide you through these new standards. Stay informed. USCIS is expected to release further clarifications and updates. Keeping up with policy memos and attorney alerts is crucial. 8. Community-wide impact. This shift doesn't just affect individual applicants. It's reshaping entire communities. Some immigrants may feel pressure to limit their online expression, fearing misinterpretation. Others may struggle with the added burden of collecting evidence while balancing work and family responsibilities. Community organizations may see an uptick in requests for volunteer verification letters or proof of service to help applicants build their cases. This is a clear signal that immigration status is now tied to both lawfulness and perceived loyalty, creating a more demanding environment for those seeking a path to permanent residency or citizenship. 9. What happens next? Here's what to expect in the coming months. Legal challenges. Civil rights groups are already preparing lawsuits. Political debates. Congressional hearings may be scheduled to review how these rules are applied. Administrative updates. USCIS is likely to issue more detailed guidance as officers and applicants adjust to the new process. But for now, the rules are active and being applied in interviews and reviews right now. 10. Key takeaways. USCIS is now screening applicants for anti-American views. Citizenship applicants must show positive contributions, beyond just avoiding trouble. These rules apply to new and pending applications alike. The lack of clear definitions means outcomes may vary widely by case. Preparation and documentation are more important now than ever before. Final thoughts. For years, immigration has included background checks and a review of moral character. But August 2025 marks a new standard, one that expects applicants to prove not just compliance, but commitment. For some, this will mean faster approvals and a smoother path to citizenship, especially for those who are prepared, well-documented, and actively engaged in their communities. For others, these rules could mean more delays, denials, or even risks of removal if their cases are flagged during review. The best strategy right now is proactive preparation. Audit your records, document your contributions, and seek professional guidance if needed. Because in this new system, the difference between approval and denial could come down to preparation and perception.